Why the Apple Mac is going to be remade in the USA. Will cell phone subsidies for new contracts be a thing of the past? And why hackers have a hate on for international internet oversight. And finally, is Disney the best thing to happen to Netflix since instant streaming? All those stories and more coming up on this episode of Downloaded. Hey, welcome to Downloaded. This is the show where we bring you the most opinionated voices in the tech industry today, and we dissect all the top stories that are impacting our tech world this week. I am your host, Jim Louderback. Thank you for joining us. And today I've got Dieter Bond, who's senior editor at The Verge, and Noah Kravitz, blogger at futuresmarter.com. Nice to have you guys here.
Hey, thanks.
Thanks a lot for joining me. We got a lot of interesting stuff happening this week, and we're going to jump right into it. We're going to start off with Apple. Everybody loves to talk about Apple, right? So in this exclusive NBC interview, it was only exclusive because NBC was the only one there at the time, Apple CEO Tim Cook says it is moving manufacturing back to the U.S., $100 million worth of manufacturing coming back to the United States. Quote from Tim Cook, "We've been working for years on doing more and more in the United States." And along with that story, we've got one from Bloomberg. Foxconn plans to expand its operations in North America. Foxconn does a lot of the assembly for Apple, doing more of that in the U.S. as its customers demand more made in the USA products. And if I could, I would cue Bruce Springsteen right now, but I can't. So is this part of a broader trend of onshoring, or is this just posturing? Noah, why don't you lead it off?
I saw Springsteen in Oakland a week ago.
Yeah,
today.
He was just in town.
Right. So obviously the answer is yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, and I don't know is not the answer you want. But cynically, $100 million is a drop in Apple's bucket, maybe.
Exactly.
So at the very least, it's a $100 million PR play. There was a chart, I think it was on isimco.com, Horace Dedu, is that your last name? His website in the last week or two, comparing Apple's PR and marketing spending against their competitors, Samsung, and Apple spends nothing. So cynically speaking, who cares? It's a very, very low cost, high impact, rah-rah, PR.
And look, Dieter, this whole made in the USA thing or made in China thing, I mean, the parts are coming from all over the place, right? The chips are designed in the US, they might be made at TSMC and Taiwan. Stuff comes from everywhere, and just putting it together is such a small part of the whole thing anyway, right?
Yeah, I mean, the assembly's not much. I mean, Apple's actually not the first to try and have a high-profile move to manufacture something in the U.S. We saw Google do it with the Nexus Q, right? And that was pretty expensive and probably failed for other reasons.
Yeah, assembling 9 units doesn't cost much.
The thing that's interesting to me is with bringing stuff to the U.S. is this argument that Apple makes that it's not about the cost of labor, that it's about skill sets, and that they need 1,000 engineers for middle management, and they can get that in a week in China, whereas here it would take 6 months or a year.
Well, yeah, I also thought it was interesting that Foxconn was saying, yeah, we're going to do this, but we actually have to take some of the engineers in the U.S. and take them to China to train them because they're just not good enough here.
I mean, the interesting sort of broader topic is, what's the future of tech and engineering and manufacturing jobs? What's sort of the place for blue collar work in a Silicon Valley driven economy in the US, right? And so if actually there's a way that Apple and Tesla, for that matter, or whoever, can, create jobs kind of at all different skill sets, all different sectors in the US, then terrific. I don't know if I buy it. I mean, I want to.
Well, look, part of me wonders if this is just an evening out of the economy. The U.S. is becoming less of a high-cost provider. We're coming down and becoming, in many ways, more competitive with the rest of the world that is, in fact, moving up a little bit.
Right.
And, it also costs a lot of money to ship stuff around, right?
Yeah.
Ship that finished product. I also wonder, and this is just me, I have no inside information on this at all, but, Apple's been rumored to be doing something in the television space. Televisions are expensive to move around. Could they be getting the glass from somewhere else and bringing it here and putting it together? Now, $100 million isn't going to make a lot of TVs.
It won't. Yeah, I mean, when's the last time we had serious TVs manufactured in the U.S.? Was it Zenith, RCA? It's been a while, so that would be nice to see. I mean, my question is, you said you want to buy it. How much more would you pay for a phone that had made in the USA, where you knew it wasn't just assembled, but it was significantly manufactured here?
I paid, I think it was $32 for 3 pair of, now bear with me here, 3 pair of made in the USA underwear on Kickstarter recently. Clinton Tinder. and I got the underwear, and it's fine. And then I got kind of, now I'm on the mailing list, and I got the big holiday special, and I looked at it, and now it's like 15 bucks a pair, and there's no way I'm going to pay extra because it's made in the USA.
What's the delta there on underwear? I haven't bought underwear recently. I probably shouldn't have admitted that. But
me neither, man.
Well, you obviously just Kickstarter underwear I think is just amazing. But
yeah. Okay, I just saw a chart yesterday of people buying underwear over time, and apparently underwear purchases peak at around 50. Your underwear per year that you buy.
Really?
So you crank up. You don't buy much.
I may have been an early peaker.
And then after that it drops down. Anyway.
Interesting. That's one of those facts that I'm not really sure I know what to do with, except I think we're going to move on to the next story, and let's talk a little bit about T-Mobile. So T-Mobile, interestingly enough, is getting out of the subsidized phone business, right? And they are also going to finally offer the iPhone, but not at a subsidized price at $600 to $800. So first of all, really interesting. Now, phones are not subsidized in many other places around the world. Noah, do you think this is the end of phones being subsidized in the US, or is T-Mobile going to be an outlier still?
I don't think it's the end. I think there were a lot of things said yesterday that T-Mobile's going to have to back up next year.
Like such as what?
Well, we're going to bring the iPhone to market in a way that, nobody's thought of. We're going to shake it all up. We're going to, and again, with the poor pronunciation of French-sounding names, John Legere?
Right, something like that, yeah.
He said something about how, we're going to have a lot of fun with our new ad campaign.
He said fun over and over and over again.
And something about we're going to make the news outlets retract all the stuff they've been writing about us. And I don't know what that's all getting at. The thing about the value plan and the whole, it's cheaper up front, but it's really like 0% financing. So let's say they can, sell you an unlocked iPhone for $650, and it really comes out to like $99 down, $15 or $20 a month
right.
on your bill over time.
24 months, right? So that's it's $500.
So it actually rolls out to not be all that much different than
but it is different because
to the consumer.
But to the consumer, that subsidization model, if you choose to get the money off at the outset instead of paying full price, that ends, and then you get the cheaper data plan. If I bring an unlocked phone to AT&T tomorrow and I say, give me a data plan, I am paying their data plan price that already has baked into it the assumption that I'm paying for hardware when I'm not.
But it only works out if you don't get a new phone in 2 years.
Right.
If I buy the new iPhone on T-Mobile and I hang on to it and I use it until I'm old enough to start buying underwear again, then it works out for me financially.
I think that T-Mobile is being I think the word I used when I described their little analyst day was they're being impish. They're just being they
got nothing to lose, right?
They got nothing to lose, and they're going to try something different. And I'm kind of rooting for them because the plans that they're going to be pushing are at least transparent to the consumer of this is what the device actually costs.
Yeah.
When I think about an iPhone, I think about it costing $200, but it's not actually $200. It's $800.
And so $800 is a lot of money. Do you think people will end up in the U.S. spending more for a phone than an iPad? And the iPhone's more expensive than the iPad.
Yeah,
right?
Possibly, but I think that a lot of people are going to go with the subsidize it plan, but it'll at least be transparent to them that I'm going to be paying an extra $15 a month for this device, and then once that's done, it's done.
The key is still having that feeling of I'm getting an iPhone for $99. It's like that psychology of the way that I think Americans buy things, and people in other places also, but I think it's to some extent a uniquely American thing where it's sort of like, selling out the long term for the I just got an iPhone for $99, even though I have to pay $20 a month going for it's like Rent-A-Center or something.
Yeah, but can't you see? I mean, if this happens and the other carriers follow suit, don't we end up in a world where people are not spending as much money on phones? Where people look at it and say, you know what? Yeah, the iPhone, when it was $100 or $200, great, right? The rest of it's sort of a hidden cost. If I actually have to spend $600 or $800 on an iPhone, I might actually end up getting a Nexus 4 for $350 versus an iPhone for $700, right?
Yeah, I mean the proof will be not next year when T-Mobile launches the iPhone and they put out their new plans and they have their crazy fun ad campaign. The proof is going to be if they're successful in 3 or 4 years. It's really easy to be open and transparent and try and shake things up when you're losing because you're losing and you got to try something. But when you're winning, it's really tempting to look more like a Verizon.
So we're going to move on to our next story. We're going to talk about this UN meeting that was happening where they're trying to figure out how they're going to govern the internet. report on the BBC on this meeting was disrupted. Talked about being disrupted by hackers. What happens? The hackers went in, cut off access to a shared drive in there where they were trying to pull up some of the information about it. And Dieter, does this fly in the face of the open internet? You got these hackers, they have one set of rules that they want the internet to run by. They're like, but we're not going to give you access to the data you need to make the decisions.
Well, the larger context for this, the ITU, the International Telecommunications Meeting that's going on, is they're trying to debate what the internet should look like, what the governance of the internet should look like, and so hackers going in to disrupt it. I think that there's so many issues and it's super confusing of like, do they have the power to do what they want to do? What do they want to do? What'll happen if they manage to pass something? It's really easy to just sort of go in and disrupt it just as a sort of general statement of protest. It's like I'm thinking of like the World Trade Organization kind of
right.
protest.
Yeah, like the WTO, people outside throwing blood around and stuff like that.
Yeah, this is insanely complicated. There's all these governments are making decisions. We don't know what's going on. We don't know what the impact is. So we're just going to go in and mess things up.
Yeah, I mean, is it realistic, Noah, that a single agency is going to be able to oversee the entire internet this way, or is it they just kind of pissing in the wind?
I don't know. Is that agency called Google? I mean, it really, I exactly what you're saying. I think about all this, and I think about government, and then I think about, well, ultimately, how do the decisions that they might make jibe with the most influential commercial powers in the world? And,
well, those influential commercial powers are not happy about this meeting. They're not happy about what they're trying to do.
Well, one of the interesting things that the guys who hacked it apparently weren't happy about as well is this sort of new standard for deep packet inspection. They want to build into hardware across the internet that allows governments or anybody else actually to really get into and see what's in your packet. Dieter, this doesn't sound like a good idea.
No, I'm not happy with this idea at all. I mean, if you want to try and play devil's advocate, you could say, well, if it's at least officially regulated, then there'll be ways where you can and can't use it, and then you've got some rules around it, because otherwise people are just doing it anyway. But I think in general that I don't trust the proposal, and I don't trust the people behind it, and so I'm not for it at all.
You don't trust the government?
It turns out no.
I don't trust the government either. I don't trust them to do the right thing when it comes to technology, at least.
Yeah.
How about you, Noah?
As long as I can download plans off the internet to use a 3D printer to print my own underwear that cannot have its deep packets inspected by the International Telegraph Union, is that what it's originally called?
Originally with Telegraph Union.
Yeah, then we're cool.
So you basically want to put a tinfoil hat around your crotch. That you print out on your 3D printer.
You one-up me, and I have no response.
Okay, we're going to move on to our last story. We're going to talk about Netflix for a minute. Really interesting. You probably all saw this. Netflix has kind of been beat up recently. Their stock's down. People are like, they're going out of business. They've got competition from Hulu. But they went out and did something pretty interesting. They did this major deal with Disney. $350 million a year gives them rights to new Disney films starting, I think, in 2016. Get some of the older flicks now. I did a little bit of math on this. 25 million US subscribers right now. That works out to $1.17 per month per subscribers. A lot of money when you're only charging $8. Dieter, is this going to save Netflix?
I think that the way that streaming video and these deals are happening is changing actually quicker than people realize. And we talked about Apple maybe coming into this space. Yeah. And so it's a fine deal. It's good for Netflix. It's interesting that Disney is willing to do it with Netflix instead of trying to roll their own solution or have more control or just work with somebody else. But I think that it's hard to know is it really going to make a difference, because there are bigger forces at work in the media TV landscape than just does Netflix get to stream Disney movies.
I think it puts Netflix on par with HBO and Showtime, and it's interesting that Starz was paying about, they said, these are all rumored, because now there's about $100 million for it. So the cost of that has just gone up amazingly, which, first of all, anybody who creates content like we all do, we've got to be really happy about that, because it says, hey, guess what? Content's important and people will pay for it. But I think HBO and Showtime, who have been kind of playing around with this going direct, but you still have to have a cable subscription, I don't know. I think it might push them over the edge to go direct to consumer. Noah, do you buy that or not?
I would buy it. I'd love that. I use Netflix pretty much every day to watch old stuff. So the whole, I'm kind of the wrong guy to ask on a personal level, because I just sort of quirkily have my, I like the way Netflix works on the Apple TV in the bedroom and the Xbox in the living room, and they have Cheers, and right now we're watching old episodes of Cheers. So what do I care? I'm back in the Stone Age. But I think you hit it on the head that, all this stuff, watch ESPN and HBO Go and all this stuff that I don't have a cable TV subscription right now. I still get some cable because I buy my internet service through the cable provider. But I would pay a la carte just to get, HBO certain shows or certain shows on Showtime. But to still have to verify through the cable thing, I think once somebody, and everybody's looking to Apple, to be the ones, but maybe it'll be a Netflix. Once somebody can kind of knock that stranglehold that the Comcasts and the Time Warners have on this stuff and go direct to the content providers in a way that can just shoot it out to my iPad without the cable end around. That would be huge.
The trouble is on all of this is it comes down to sports rights. And sports rights, these like the latest deal that was done with the NFL, I was like, I don't have the exact figures, it was like 12 years, and billions of dollars, which means that if you're a sports fan, you're not going to get this a la carte pricing because someone's got to pay for that. And so I think it's changing really quickly, like you said, but there are also all these forces aligned against it that are kind of pushing back on it. And I guess my question is are we going to see a huge explosion that's just going to break apart, or is it going to be slow, or is it just not going to happen?
Well, so when Apple came into music with iTunes, the music industry needed a solution because they weren't making money.
Right.
But as you just described, everybody's making money creating this content. And in sports, there's a ton of money. And so they're not waiting for a solution. We're waiting for a solution that makes it easier. But just because the consumer wants it, I'm willing to pay a certain amount of money for HBO Go. I'd love to buy Game of Thrones a la carte right when it's available. But even if everybody who's like me were to do that, it still pales in comparison to the amount of money they can make with exclusive deals with the cable providers.
Exactly. Yeah. When do you think we're going to look back and say that was the turning point? It all changed. Is it going to be 3 years from now, 5 years, 7 years, tomorrow?
I think sometime in 2013 we'll see something, and I think Netflix getting Disney, you're right, it is a big statement, and they're well positioned because they are on so many screens and they do have such consumer reach, and people get that they can get Netflix on their Xbox, their PlayStation, or their tablet or whatever.
I think Apple or Amazon could push something out, packaged with all the content, all the services, all the infrastructure they already have, and it could be a TV set. It could be a set-top box.
The trouble with that is that it has to be more of a set-top box or something like the Nexus thing you're talking about, because TVs, we don't change our TVs that frequently.
Right.
Right? It's hard to change a TV. They're big. Yeah. I mean, they still weigh a lot. Yeah. I think it ties into the tablet and the tablet ecosystem and the TV and the set-top box. And I do think you're right. I think Amazon is well-positioned. I actually think Google's well-positioned. Mm-hmm. Microsoft with Xbox could do it. Right? And then Apple. What about Apple?
They could, but I don't have a lot of faith in Microsoft.
You don't have any faith in Microsoft. That's for another show. That's about it here for us today. Thanks a lot. That's all the time we have. I want to thank Dieter and Noah for showing up. Thanks you guys very much. You can follow them on the Twitter. Dieter is at Backlon, B-A-C-K-L-O-N, and Noah is at Noah Kravitz. And if you want to follow me to find out about how much I love my 8-year-old phone, you can do that at JLouderB. Catch us every 2 weeks here on the Tech Feed. Until next time, you've been watching Downloaded. Thanks, guys.